here on this hot evening. The heat wave is running all through Europe, and I have the pleasure to share some thoughts with you about what I think sustainability is all about and what is the progress we have to achieve within the next 20 years. My name is Jürgen Lutz. I'm from the German Sustainable Council, the DGNB. A little bit not so good branding for the international style, but anyway. And I've been invited to give a little talk today. Just, I think it was last week. So maybe this talk is a mixture of several things, and what I'm trying to do is to give you an impression what the DGNB is and to motivate you. So, being here and not knowing who you are and what you are doing, I just asked myself, what is the thing we all share? What is the thing we've got in common? And I think it's that one. So, this planet Earth, 4.6 billion years old now. 1.9 billion years ago, life appeared. And 300,000 years ago, the modern human life forms showed up. Now we're about, I guess, 7.2 billions. And we're expected to be 10 around 2080, I guess. And I think it's just stunning because we don't know such a pearl through the whole universe. It's really unique. And the pity is that we don't have a manual how to run it. So we're just trying to do what we can do. And since this is our common home, we are now highly connected, especially on an economic level. This was the 13th of July this year, the date with the most flights within 24 hours, 200,000. So that's an economic dimension of our connectivity. And there are two things I want to give you to keep in mind until the whole talk. And the first thing is, this is the consequence of a human-made, a man-made system. It's a social one and it's an economical one. But we can just do anything different with the system. We can change it tomorrow if we want to. Mr. Trump tries to do that in not so funny ways, but anyway, it shows how fast things can change. That's the one thing. The other thing is that we're also connected on a different level, on the biosphere. This is what's going to be happen if the ocean warming keeps up. And what's important is that this connectivity all around the globe is set up by rules we can't change. It's physics, it's chemistry. So there are rules that are independent from us. If we vanish tomorrow, and there is no natural law that humanity should exist within the next 1,000 years, anyway, it feels like it should, but it doesn't. Physics just will keep on working and the climate will heat up because of the emissions we already have in the atmosphere. So these are the two things we have to think about and to keep in mind. A system that is self-made and a system that is bound to rules that are not within our sphere to change. And I'm not that kind of guy who thinks that the new Silicon Valley utopia of technology and artificial intelligence and all that will change that. And I'm not a fan of geoengineering, something that is discussed right now because of all the side effects, like that the sky won't be blue anymore. So what the talk will be about is just a quick rush through the problems at hand, since you all probably firm with them. I like to link them to the building and construction sector and give you also a little explanation about the DGNB and our system. And then a short flashlight, not that scientific proven, but hopefully a little bit inspiring, about the connection of innovation and sustainability. And then introduce you to a few people I'm would be very interested to meet in person, and then a call for action, as I call it. So on what Let's Talk is not going to be about, and we can talk about that later on with a cold beer, are aspects like the importance of language. I've worked on that, the importance of language for concepts like why do we call it environmental protection? It's self-protection. We depend on that system. The separation of functions within societies. We have a department for ecology. Why isn't that something that has to be done in every department? All the moral and ethical aspects, like the denial and all the gap between what we know and what we do. That's very interesting. I've started a PhD about that, but it isn't finished yet, so something to discuss. The role of political institutions like the EU and the UN, and all the technological utopias. I don't think that digitalization will save us. I think it will just speed up the energy demand, and we already got numbers from digitalization telling us that it's just a nightmare. Anyway, you're all familiar with pictures like this. This is the Hurricane Irma in Haiti. 300 kilometers per hour for nearly 40 hours. So sitting 2 days in your house and it's just 300 kilometers speed outside. That's one thing. And you all firm with the problem of air pollution, the problem of plastic waste and all that. So I think we don't have to discuss that sustainability is a must nowadays. And I just want to introduce you to two concepts that I think are quite helpful to frame the discussion. One is the one from Rockström, first published in 2009. It's about the planetary boundaries, the so-called there are 9, and we're already in the zone of uncertainty, how they call it, for two of them, biosphere and biochemical flows. And we're close to the zones of uncertainty for climate change and land system change. So just here we have the rules I've started to talk about. It's the biosphere rules we can't change, we just have to accept them. And the other concept most of you are now familiar with is the Earth Ocean Day. And that's just how it just started in the early 70s with this in December. And when I was born, we nearly fit our demands within the year. So the concept of Overshoot Day is that nature offers us products and services we can use, and if we just sum them up, we all consume them, we're done. And this day moved forward, and I just, within my lifetime, want to experience that the day moves backward again until the one we've started in the 70s. So this is it for 2018. For the whole globe, it was the 1st of August, and for Austria, it was the 15th of April, and for May, the 2nd. Or Germany, sorry, the 2nd of May. So, and if you compare it to your bank account, it would mean that you're done. Yeah? You have to get somebody who loans you some money, and that probably is a not working system for a long time. So, and just to bring up again the relevance of how concepts work with language, it's always told that from the day on we just can loan something, yeah? All that happens is that the system shrinks, so we're just speeding up because of we are consuming the system itself that provides us the services for the next year. So it's as simple as that. Something went wrong for the last 45 years, and the question is how to stop that. And even if you're not that ecological guy, you don't care about speeches and all that, doesn't matter. If you're just into the economics, it's worth investing. Because 2006 there was a Stern report. Who knows Stern report? A few of you. It was Sir Stern who, I think it was the British Parliament or the Queen even, that just told him, just calculate what it will cost us if we don't invest in climate mitigation and to avoid climate change. And here are the consequences depending on what will happen through the years. And what you have to take with you is that, sorry, I was too fast, is that 1% of invest would lead to 5% of avoided losses. So it's just a good investment, or it has been, because it's 12 years ago. And they made an update 2016, and it was quite simple. It just said, delay is dangerous, and for people and prosperity, for both. So we've got all that problems at hand. Problems with waste, with fresh water, sand, phosphorus, air quality, and all that. And it's kind of depressing, or it could be. But the interesting thing is that we have the UN and we have other parliaments and institutions, and the UN made a move, and they just set up 17 goals. And behind that 17 goals are 169 indicators. And that's a hell of a lot to start with. And each of these indicators contributes in some or the other way to solve the problems. And I just read the one that are connected to our building and construction sector. Clean water and sanitation, life on land, climate action, sustainable cities and communities. That's the obvious one, but the others also. So, a lot of options to start from to solve that problem. And that's the end agenda for 2030, so within the next 12 years. And it's quite interesting because it makes me a little bit hopeful, because what I've learned through the last 15 to 20 years dealing with climate change and other environmental topics are three things that I want to share with you. First, things tend to happen faster than expected. That's nearly every second paper I get on my table that says something like, oh, it's getting a little bit faster than we expected, sorry about that, we should also speed it up. So, time is crucial. Second one, nature is more complex. So, we don't understand the dynamics yet. For example, how clouds form. We don't know it. And there are tipping points, and we don't understand them also. So, what we have to do is to be a little bit humble against nature, because nature is bigger than us. And the third one is the common business settings won't be enough. So, we have to question our practices and become more flexible. So, the good thing is we're part of the problem, and so we're part of the solution. As simple as that. There is no big problem somebody outside there, the politicians or somebody else, should fix. It's just us. And it's something we can do. And here are the numbers for our section. And that's really cool, because we're responsible for 40% of energy consumption, 12% of drinking water consumption on a global scale. 38% of greenhouse gases, some would say it's a little bit more, and 40% of solid waste. So, true by numbers, we can make a difference. We don't have to wait for somebody else. It's just us. And we have to, because since the 1990s, that's the benchmark, the referencing to, when we're looking at the CO2 emissions, the increase in the building sector was 45%. That's a lot. And we now, last year, had 41 billion tons of CO2 emissions, and we have to go down to 5. So that's a big challenge. And if you put it into numbers, that's some kind of calculation that's been done by the Mercator Institute. You can look it up at their homepage, and you can change the frames by, you want to achieve on the left-hand side 2 degrees of warming within an upper estimation. That means we have 900 gigatons to spend until 2100. And that would mean we have 20 years to go. Then we have to be carbon net zero for all buildings, also that one in use. And the other one is 1.5 degrees, On a lower estimation, that means we only have left 350 gigatons, then we're already done last year. So somewhere in between is the truth. And these are the last numbers, and then I will come to how we can fix that, hopefully. So it's the building sector. 40% of CO2 are related to our activities. And it's expected to rise by 30% until 2060, mainly because of temperatures like today, cooling industry. Hopefully they don't make hooray about all that, because they're making a lot of money now. The more on floor demand, that is rising faster than we can rise energy efficiency. So there's a gap in between. The good thing is, there are solutions. You can look them up. It's the Global Status Report from the UN 2017, and I think we share the presentation after, so you don't have to write it down. And there are nine points to start with, and I don't want to go through them with you now. You can read through them. The important thing is, this is the reminder to ourselves, we know what to do. It's no miracle. So, let's just change the game a little bit. And here's a question to you. Who of you know how, or what is the percentage of CO2 in the atmosphere right now? The percentage. You can calculate it if you have the parts per million in mind. So it's a little bit math to do, so you don't fall asleep, since we're losing a little bit of fresh air in. So, nobody asks, so, have you ever driven a car and how was it? And the answer usually is, oh yes, I have, it was fun. And I move on and say, so do you understand the physics that made the engine run? And they're telling me, no, I don't have to. We have engineers for that. So, guys like you. And then I move on and say, and you still got in your car every day and trust that it works the same way like the day before? Yes, of course. Why not? And then I just try to convince them. That's very interesting. Because if you doubt that 0.04% makes the whole climate change moving into a direction we don't want it to, you doubt something based on the same rules of physics and proven by thousands of experts in the field, just like the engine of your car. And you don't doubt that the next morning when you get into it. Hopefully you should do. Maybe you've got to upgrade to 400 PS, so it's a little bit faster. And that's something that's very interesting to me. Just keep in mind, I told you in the beginning that we've got that set of rules we can't change. Physics is one of them. So, what I've learned from this discussion I had, I would say, near 200 times now, people, we rely on experience, in this case driving. So, even so 99% of you don't understand how it works, as long as it works, we're fine with it. So the question to us, if we want to transfer it to how to deal with climate changes, how can we create positive, sustainable experiences, like driving? People don't have to understand it, they just have to know it works and it has to be fun. Second, people can be passionate about anything if they benefit from it. So we don't have to address climate change, since people won't change their behavior based on facts. We have to address something that are interesting for them, like save energy costs from less cooling, being healthy and sleeping well, not that easy through the last two months, having a lovely green space in the neighborhood to meet cycling to work if it's safe and comfortable. I've been to Copenhagen a few weeks ago, and it was just incredible for me, because I'm from Stuttgart, and we know each other by name, the guys who are cycling. And in Copenhagen, you have just a bunch of 20 people all time around you, and what's crazy is that the streets are still full of cars. So it's just necessary. It's not something they do for just to be sustainable. question is, how can we often explain small daily based benefits, not the big one, oh, we've got to solve climate change. That's a too big problem. We have to break it down to little handleable sized problems. And the last one is knowledge doesn't trigger anything, because you are not a machine, and the number is something that abstract that you can't get any emotion out of it. It's just 0.04. So what we need to do is we bring people in and give them the option just to deal with their emotions. Okay? So I call it the new Trojan horses. Probably all of you know the Trojan story. And that's something we should try to invent. And not address facts and fear, because fear is something that's deeply rooted to your brain. It's a very old structure, the amygdala in your reptile brain system. It's something that goes just the way it wants to, and we have to offer great experiences. It has to be fun to be sustainable. Okay, so what we need now. This is the starting slide from a summer school I did myself when I was at the university 2 years ago. We need something like an evolution at the speed of a revolution. Yeah? So progress, little steps, people can keep up with, but we have to keep serious. And the interesting thing is, yesterday there was a paper published in Science, and the main idea was it only needs 25% of a crowd to convince that a topic is very important and to change the set of minds. So if we calculate it, we are around about 100 people here, 25. So we can convince a group of 400 people that sustainability is really the thing we have to deal with. That's cool. So, having said all this, the problems at hand and how we can hopefully deal with it, the game is that we need to become experts for better buildings. And we need a system to help us to do that. And here are what I think we should expect from a system like that. First is address problems in a holistic way. Takes different users and stakeholders into consideration. It has to be usable for everyday use. Enables measurable positive effects. Conform to existing knowledge, nothing totally new. Give you an incentive for innovations so that you're keen on them. Rely and contribute to a set of common goals. And very important, is suitable for different countries, not just Germany, also Austria, China, Thailand, and anything else. So the questions building are obviously changing the world we live in, and the question is, what sort of world do we want to live in today and in which one tomorrow? So here's the DJB part, or our vision. The vision is that the design, build, and operating of sustainable buildings should become the new normal, should be the standard. Nothing you have to discuss. Who is the DJB? Just one slide about that. We are a network. We are a non-governmental, non-profit organization, 1,200 members, from the big companies like Südlink down to the one-man architecture office. And we are Europe's biggest network, not the world's one, but already Europe's one. And there's a system that had been developed over the years, starting 2009. Now we have the version 2018. I think it's now the 4th release. And we already have 3,200 certifications out there in 20 countries. And we're aiming to still be the global benchmark for sustainability. And the whole idea behind the system is to make sustainable usable for practice. So we have a lot of architects within and a lot of practitioners that helped to develop the system and to keep it on moving. And then there's a part I'm glad to be responsible for. The academy, we are trying to share the knowledge, to educate people to use the DGB system. Within the room are at least 2 persons. I'm already had the pleasure to work on the system and how to use it. So hopefully we will get it more. So what is the DGMB system all about? It's mainly about life cycle assessment. That's a big difference to the other systems, like LEED and PRIAM. And LEED tried to adopt it, but it didn't work in the practice. So every audit has to take an entire life cycle. We have to calculate it. It's a holistic approach. We balance the social dimension with the ecological and the economical one. And it's an emphasis on performance, so we're looking at how the building is performing through the lifetime, not how does it look like when it's erected. So, and it all comes together when you're doing an DGMB certification. That's a kindergarten. It's a platinum project, a very, very great project. And these are the pillars. So you've got the environmental quality, the economic quality, and the social culture, and they are all at the same weight, 22.5%. And because we're in the building sector, we have to look at the technical quality and also the process quality and the site. We don't want the top green building outside the city somewhere on itself, only creating a lot of traffic. So, as you can see, they are all equal, balanced, and it's 39 criteria. And behind every criteria, there are indicators. Some of them are quality ones, some of them are quantitative ones. You can calculate them, and they're all free to download. So you can go on the website, get the German version or the English version, whatever you want to, and just have the knowledge and take a look at it. And what's also important is to know that if you're doing a certification of a building, you're collecting points for the different criteria. And once you've got 80%, you can get a platinum. If you got 65, you got gold. But, and that's all about the balance of the project, you have to have 65% in the other sectors, in each sector I've showed you. So what you can't do is be very good at the economic quality and the social cultural and don't care about the environmental quality. That doesn't work. You have to have at least, if you want to have platinum, gold in each sector. So why certifications are important down to materials and to performance and to life cycle. And that's very interesting because the asset managers are interested in that when it's all about due diligence of a building, because you can look it up. So, that's certification. And it's not only buildings, it's also buildings in use, it's interiors, and it's also districts. You can use the system for. And it's about materials also. It's about healthy buildings and how they contribute to it. And we've got the strictest quality requirements from all systems. Some of the auditors, these are the guys who are managing certification process, are really not so happy about how restrictive we are about the materials. But it has to be, since it's all about the health of the people who usually are 8 to 12 hours within the building.